today's all about Marilyn. It's her turn.
Oh, yeah, she's a good start.
Yeah, we're there. We're there. Okay. So probably the best way to start is, Marilyn, just tell us a little bit about your book, because I think yours is not just about the book. Yours is about a program that goes on after it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So Dan and Lynn can understand.
Well, this book of mine has been going on for a few years, and I got to the stage where I just wanted to say something as I'd left teaching. So I just wrote to the book, and then did more and more research about kids and reading, and realised that that the book needed some support. You know, it's okay to read. You don't teach a child to read without understanding what you're doing. So I decided I put up a program on Udemy, and I had about 8,000 or 9,000 people enrolled in doing that. I didn't charge for it, and then again realised that people don't teach themselves to read, and schools don't do a very good job of it either. Because one of the things that worried me when I first graduated from college and went into secondary teaching, that at least a third of the class didn't have reading skills. So it's just been a journey for me. I think I wrote the book for myself, actually, because I just wanted to know, how do you teach these kids to read? I had a job in a technical school, and I I think they referred 150 students to me. And so, again, I couldn't teach 150 kids that we know, teenagers, even up to year 10, that had got through the system not being able to functionally read. You know, they could read some words, they could read some simple text, but they had no comprehension skills. So I decided, look, I think I actually did it for me when I retired, because I wanted to know where I'd failed.
Oh, okay. Well, don't beat yourself up. I don't think.
No. I had, you know.
None of us are failures here.
Oh, I was. But I started to stand up before I said, listen, you know, standing up in the education department can be a rather dangerous thing to do, because you can't change a system easily. So I thought, well, online. So I put an ebook online in America, again, free, and it was in a group of, it was a downloading company that just put hundreds of ebooks that people had written on, and people downloaded them for free. Well, mine was in the top 10%. So I thought, hello, something's going on here. It's everywhere. But look, basically, I've got past that. I'm too old now to start reforming the education system. So I published my book, and I really thought, well, I can't do anything else. You know?
It's sort of, swimming against the tide.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not easy, and no, I think we've all been there and have done that in our lives. Yeah, and have come away going, nah.
No.
Sometimes it's best to start your own river that you swim down rather than try and swim up somebody else's river.
When I started tutoring, I started individual tutoring and put my ideas into place there. Kids started to read. So I thought, I can't save the world. This is just too big for me, this world. I can't change the education department, but I can change it with just individual kids. I started as a teacher with reading recovery. I got trained to do that, which was the big in thing to do. And I could pick the flaws in that.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, maybe I've got to the end of the thing thinking maybe I'm just wrong. But when I realised, look, reading is is like music. It's not inbuilt in the brain. It's a skill that has to be taught. And some brains find it easy to read. Most brains have to struggle a little to learn. And then there's a group of people with this term called dyslexia.
Yep.
And that's a continuum as well. And that's very real. That's very real. So I think basically it's bigger than I am. But I just did my book for those kids that could be taught, that middle group of kids that could be taught. The other ends, no, I can't, you can't do it. So, yeah.
That's specialist, like I'm teaching, dyslexic people how to, become more literate. I mean, Bob's taught himself.
Yeah, I bought his book and I'm reading. It's fascinating what he did. I've read a lot of books by people who said they're dyslexic and what they do, and I thought that made sense. And then I had a student a couple of years ago who was dyslexic, and his mother had got him some tutoring with the part of the brain where they had to link the sound with the vision, and that was where it wasn't working. But he was brilliant at sport.
Yep.
So his brain is a sporting brain, and
Yeah,
and then he just gave up. So I think it's more complex than people recognize.
Well, having spoken English all my life, it sort of comes second nature to me, and I'm sure for Lynn and Dan as well. But but try to teach me a second language, forget it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, not going there. That's why I've got huge admiration for people who can speak, more than one language, and, 4 languages, and
and I think maybe it might be better if people didn't concentrate so much on the skill of reading, extracting, because there's different ways of doing it, and Bob's using the text to sound to text and all of that. I think it can improve that way. But I've come to the conclusion that not everybody can master print to reading and getting information from the printed word.
Yeah. It's a skill, obviously.
Yeah, it's a skill.
And so your book is about imparting the skill.
It's just the skill,
for the middle ground, shall we say.
For the middle ground, and it's about how the English alphabet system works.
Okay. So if we look at, because when a book like yours, I see you've got 2 target audiences. One is the people who need to take on and learn that skill, and the people who are going to invest in them taking on that skill. So one is the kids, another one is parents.
Yep.
Because the parents are the ones who will actually buy the book.
Absolutely.
Not the kids. And the kids aren't going to go to mum and dad and say, "Oh, can you get this for me?"
No.
That's not going to work.
But I do know that kids who can't read really suffer.
I do.
That used to break my heart, because these kids, they're telling themselves, "I'm just dumb," or whatever, and we've just known. I even had worked out very young that brains work differently, and I watch kids could do something really amazing, but they can't read. Well, that doesn't make them, it doesn't make them dumb. And I think that the education system with its marks, and reading Bob's story, I thought, oh my stars, what a brave kid. And there's plenty of kids like that.
Oh, absolutely. My first experience with a person with dyslexia was actually a very well-regarded architect, Dan. And I forget I've bumped into him about 35, 40 years ago or something, and he taught himself to read so that he can get through university, because he wanted to be an architect. He was that he's artistic, and he wanted to design buildings. So he ended up taught himself.
See, that's interesting. That's interesting, you know, because you say these people taught themselves to read, so they can be taught.
Correct, yeah.
So, you know, if you go back and you talk to them about, this is what an alphabet means, this is what's coming. When you're reading it, all this is coming in. But if you know the code, I call it a code, and some of the research says at a certain time, if you give these exercises to people, the brain kicks in.
Well,
and whatever. So, but if you're saying, and I've heard people, I've taught myself to read.
Yeah, that's.
Well, why weren't you taught at school?
Yeah, you know, what was wrong, you know, I mean, but, you know, he'd be obviously a similar age to me. And so the schooling was different in those days than it is today. So I suspect that, you know, the standard education system can't reach everybody.
Exactly. Even today.
Yeah, fall through the cracks. But as a parent, though, I think as parents are much more in tune with, they want their best for their children. So it's definitely, you know, so maybe if you tell us who you think your target audience is, let's hone in on that. You know, the people who are going to buy the book, not the people who are going to need the book.
I think parents that have realised that paying for tutors and going up to the school is not going to help it. I've got to do something about this myself. And I'm a reader. So I remember one man said to me, look, if you can read, you can teach somebody else to read. I thought, oh, that's a good thing, but you've got to understand what's involved. And I think I could point out to parents what's involved. And then my book is you know, you just won't read my book and then start to teach a child to read, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Because
so these parents, that what sort of triggers them? Is it you're talking about they hear about it at the school, you know?
I think it's the NAPLAN tests. The NAPLAN test.
NAPLAN point. They get a score that says your son is or child is struggling in this area.
Yeah. I worked for the Commonwealth during Howard's time, and my job was to go into school to work with the kids that got a so-called poor NAPLAN score. And I remember every time I went in there, they were behaviour problems. They were this. Get back to it, that they did not understand how the alphabet system worked.
Yeah,
that was a skill part of it. And I remember this one boy, all he wanted to do was to read Stephen King books.
Yep.
He was in grade 6. He had failed the NAPLAN in grade 5. And another thing is then he had to see me as well. And we sat down, and this kid comes into me absolutely defiant, all these things. And I sat down to him and I said, I'll just say to him something like, you don't want to do this with me, do you? And the look on his face was, I said, look, I don't have to stay with you either. I don't have to stay with you either. Unlike your teacher, I can leave now, and I think I might leave and go down and have a cup of coffee at Bentley. But before I go, I said, I know what I can teach you that will help your reading. He stopped. I said, now it's up to you. Are you going to give that a go, or should we just part company now? No, he said, I'll stay. He learnt to read with me. The teacher couldn't believe it when he stood up in the classroom and read something. So that was, to me, just one aspect. And I mean, I've got in my head kids all of a sudden, boys in particular. Oh, it makes sense if I just do this. Naturally, reading is far more than just the alphabet system. I mean, but you've got to understand that as well.
Yeah. Well, I see what you're doing with the kids. It's sort of parallels with, you know, what I picked up from this architect that I met all these years ago. Also, my son. Okay, I'll tell you his story. Okay, I used to. This was back in my corporate days. Okay, before I started up into type, I was very much in corporate at executive level, and I was traveling the world all the time. You know, I was living out of London, New York, and Melbourne. You know, so basically had 3 homes.
Yep.
And so I didn't. You know, my son, he was 3 at the time. So when I got back to Melbourne, we'd always play a video game, and his favourite game was Zelda. Okay. Believe it or not, 30 years later, it's still Zelda. But we'd sit down there and play. But Zelda has these instructions, these words, text that comes across the screen, you know, and it tells the legend of Zelda as you play this game, and you go and do battles and collect all of these things through this game, this fantasy type game. And he, because when I wasn't there all the time, he wanted to keep playing Zelda, so he taught himself to read. Okay. Now, I at that time was also thinking that, okay, we really want to get him reading, because I actually had at one stage 17 CEOs reporting to me. That's how senior I was. Okay. You know, and this is an $8 billion a year business, by the way. So, you know,
yeah.
So, but I'd always, throughout my career, was reading books. You know, and I would, you know, my standard was to read, you know, between 30 and 50 books a year. Okay. And that is the standard. I still hear CEOs today, you know, you're not a CEO. A CEO who doesn't read at least 30 books a year is not.
Exactly.
And I had a motivation to do that. And he had a motivation to do, my son, Nick, he had a motivation to read. We had this architect had a motivation to read because he wanted to draw. He wanted to design. It had this sort of a motivation there. And I was just so pleased my son grabbed his own motivation to go forward, rather than me having to instill a motivation in there. And just like you were saying, the student with Stephen King, you know, he obviously enjoyed Stephen King books and he was motivated.
And then he said to me, when he suddenly realised maybe I did know what I was talking about, he said, I don't have to read them books, do I? He said, and his teacher came over to me, he wants to know if it's all right for him to read his Stephen King books. And I said, of course it's all right for him to read his Stephen King books. Good on him. And, you know, he went to secondary school the next year and wrote back and thanked all his teachers that he'd been giving hell to for years.
Oh,
thank you for what you did. So I've got 3 kids in my mind.
Yeah. But where I'm coming from,
they were motivated. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, where I'm coming from here is when you look at your target audience, these parents.
Yeah.
Is we're trying to define who your target audience is, and one of the things you look at is what motivates them to want to buy your book or want to buy your course. Okay, so what's the motivation there? And you know, as a parent, your motivation is not just, I think, just the parent. The motivation is the parent being a good parent. You know, how do we motivate the child?
Exactly.
You know, what is it that what sort of message can we get to these parents that helps them get across the motivation of reading?
See, one of the things that I've also, I'm at the stage of life where I'm just frustrated that, you know, oh no, I haven't got time to do this. That's your job, you know. I said, but you know, as a tutor, I said, I can't. I'm not here every day. I mean, a lot of parents just want to hand it over to the school or to a tutor or whatever. So they're out. They're not the people that you. But I don't know how to find the people that are motivated to learn how to give this wonderful skill to their child. I don't know how to do that.
Okay. One of the things I'm going to suggest here is look for not the bigger group, small sections of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, CEOs of businesses, or you know, CEOs chief financial officers, chief marketing officers, people who are at senior management levels understand the importance of reading. That's universal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
They understand it. Those who have been like, Dan's an architect who's gone through university, he understands the importance of reading, and Lynn, you're a historian, you understand the importance of reading. So there are people, there's segments of the bigger audience that you should be looking for. Start looking at those people, the parents who actually understand the importance of good reading and who basically adopt it themselves. Okay. So for me, I look at that. You'll find those people on LinkedIn, the corporate people on LinkedIn, small business owners, okay, or medium-sized business owners would be of, okay, executives in the corporate world, So, and if you think about business owners in Australia, there's over 2 million small businesses in Australia. So you've got 2 million parents straight up.
I have been absolutely looking at this totally incorrectly.
There's another group, okay, and that's the homeschoolers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of homeschool. I mean, there's some people who are homeschoolers because of, for religious purposes, motivations. Probably not the right ones, but there is a huge number of homeschoolers who do it because they think the education system is not effective. And they are the ones, I think, would be another lucrative or positive group to tap into. Now, you won't find those, or they're on LinkedIn, but they're not obvious on LinkedIn. But on Facebook groups, if you do a search on Facebook groups, you'll see, homeschoolers. I'll just do a quick little search on groups. Homeschool. Here we go. Homeschooling Australia, 2,600 members. The Education Parents, 48,000 members. Homeschooling your kids, 88,000 members.
Right.
Homeschooling Muslim Parents, 2,100 members. Homeschool Resource Group, 165,000 members. Okay. So, but I'd suggest go into those groups. Just join them. Observe.
Okay. Yep.
Maybe engage. When somebody talks about, reading, ask questions. But, a lot of those groups don't like you promoting.
Things I wouldn't go in doing that. No.
Unless if there is somebody's talking about, reading resources, what have you, drop a link to your book in the comments. Do that then. Okay. Otherwise, you run the risk of being excluded from the group or kicked out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But you'll learn a lot about them just by observing and following some of the conversations. Okay. So that can go for you, Lynn and Dan, do that as well for your groups, find some groups, that like Lynn, you've got your 4-wheel drive adventure people, you've got your grey nomads, you've got, Dan, you've got the builders, the renovators, the architect groups. There's a lot of them there as well. Just go in there and observe. And you'll learn about your target audience. The more you understand your target audience, the easier it is to reach out to them. Okay, and it's easier then. You'll start to see them everywhere. Okay, so you'll start to see these, you'll just notice them. You'll find the cues that subconsciously will tell you, this person is within this broader group that I'm looking to approach. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think if you're going to focus in on, each one of those are different target audiences. Like with the homeschoolers, you'll engage and talk to them very differently to somebody from the executive suite. For them, the homeschoolers, I think they're more about general education, getting ahead in life, being, a lot of them like bragging rights too, by the way. From the homeschoolers I've known, I've done a couple of books for people who are involved in homeschooling, by the way, and some of them are quite egotistical, by the way. They think their child is a genius, even though they're not. I mean, they've got rose-coloured glasses, shall we say, compared to the average. So their motivation is different. They want bragging rights. My child is brighter than the average, and they'll ace the NAPLAN, for example. They're very competitive in that regard, shall we say? Yes.
Know about them.
Yeah. Whereas the executive suite, it's very much about our career. Very much about setting them up so that they can make life easier for them. When they do settle on a career, they'll be able to handle university, be able to
absolutely
be at the top end. So you talk to them when you're marketing. It's about talking to them very differently. So you can see how they're distinct groups, but I think they're very in tune with what you're after, or what your book is all about and the value it delivers. Okay, so they're just two groups that I can think of off the top of my head, and there's bound to be others.
I've just realised, Ian, that I've just been focusing on the people that that I can't help.
Yeah.
That's what, and I've been, I could do a certain amount and whatever, but it's a sort of a long, and I had not even thought beyond your child is struggling with reading, and then you find out that mum has or dad has before.
And they're a non-reading household.
That's right. They're a non-reading household, and that happens so many times.
Oh, yeah. That's why,
That's where the frustration came in.
Yeah. And that's where with my son, very much. Soon as he was old enough, I'd read to him every night.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could be the other side of the world, and we'd do a FaceTime or a Zoom type meeting. It was different then. We're using WebEx and stuff like that to do it, but different tools. But and I'd do a read him a book from the other side of the world every day. But not many parents do that.
No, and they're the people I've been focusing on. I've been wanting to change the world.
So here's another lesson for everyone here too. It's very easy to get caught up with thinking these people need something. And it's true. They absolutely do need it. But they won't open their wallets for a need. They need to want to do it. They need to be motivated. Okay, so, in Lynn's example, for example, with Lynn, it's people who, if you're going to be, going up to the Kimberley, hey, you really need to check out the history of the place. Yeah. But there's a lot of people who don't care about history. And you'll never get them to read about it. Or they want to go up there as go fishing, for example. So there's no point talking to them about history. Find those people who are just passionate about history. Yeah, who want to learn about it, want to expand their minds, and the grey nomads for Lynn, there's people who want to exercise their brain, it's part of growing old, learning new things, but there's a lot of people growing older don't want to learn new things. They finish with school, that's it, I don't need to learn anymore, and so they stop, So,
I feel as though I've been run over by a Mack truck.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my goodness! It's finally got home. I finally get it.
Yeah.
Oh dear, oh dear. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So now you.
Thank you.
Now you get it. So start to learn and just start to engage with your people, your tribes. Like say you've got 2 tribes. Start to engage through LinkedIn.
Yep.
And you start putting posts about the importance of reading.
That's what I come to. I said I've got to be brave enough to put posts in LinkedIn and also Facebook, because I have not been brave enough to do it.
Yep. It's, and I get that. This is one of the things I have about social media personally, is that, for us older generations, we're all baby boomers here, let's face it. We're, sharing personal stuff. We grew up, personal stuff's personal.
Yeah.
You don't put it out there.
Yeah.
You put, your family and friends know about it, but you don't tell the world. You don't brag. We're brought up not to brag, not to boast and what have you. Whereas the modern generation, it's all about boasting. Very different.
Yeah, totally different.
Very different.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's don't change who you are. You don't think you've got to be on social media to boast.
Oh no.
So
but
for me,
inform.
Yeah. So for me with social media is, I've got, I don't put too much personal stuff out there. But there's stuff that you can post about that delivers value. Okay. So as and this is for everyone here too, is that when we talk on social media, don't think of it as social media. Think of it as a medium, like a newspaper, where you put an article in, or you put a snippet of information in that helps people progress. So it's all about helping people. My philosophy is I'm put onto this earth to improve lives, to improve people's lives. So whenever I post something, it's all about helping people improve their life. It doesn't have to be about boasting. It doesn't have to be personal.
No, exactly.
But within social media, you can create personal areas, safe areas too. Now, with Facebook, for example, I have a family Facebook group, and it's the only people who are in there are family members.
Yeah.
Okay, so nobody else. It's a private group. Nobody else is allowed in. And then you can post whatever you like in there, okay, about personal and family sort of stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And we also set up a WhatsApp group as well, but that's another one. So, but we mainly use the Facebook group. It's the main one. But the rest of it I just keep it personal free. I do some personal stuff on Facebook. Now you would have seen that I've set up in Expertly in the membership area. There's an article and stuff in there about the professional profile on Facebook. Okay, I encourage everybody to convert their Facebook personal profile to a professional profile.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But keeps it simple. You only need to be posting in one spot in Facebook then. Okay. You don't need a Facebook page. You don't need to create a Facebook group. But when you have a professional profile, if you want to post to family and friends in there,
No.
you can actually just put a post in there that only goes out to them. Okay. Because in the Facebook professional profile, you have two buckets, basically. You have followers and you have family and friends. Okay. So what you want to do is grow your author platform by bringing those into your professional profile, and they'll be followers, okay, rather than friends. And when you do a post, you can actually stipulate whether that post is for everybody, or is it just for followers, or is it just for family and friends?
Wow. Is this new, is it?
Oh, I've been doing it for a couple of years.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've been terrified of Facebook because
Yeah.
of the nastiness and
there's a lot of look, in any LinkedIn is the least nastiest profile platform out there. Okay. The nastiest by far is Twitter or X.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And now I was an early adopter of X, and I've got about 20,000 followers on there. I don't touch it now.
No.
I don't touch it. It's just really, it's angry white men yelling at each other and creating hate and division. I hate it. I just, and that's ever since Elon Musk has taken over.
Yeah.
It's just gone horrid. So I don't go there. Facebook is quite, I think, it's not as safe as LinkedIn, but with Facebook, if you have people who post stuff that you don't like, you can actually, unfriend them, unfollow them. Just do that. Keep your feed clean. You don't want to be, bombarded with this horrid messages all the time, because that's not good for anybody's mental health.
Morale. No, it's not.
Not good. So you kick them off your feed, get rid of them. And then if you see ads come through, and we've got, we're in political mode at the moment, and then we get a lot of people, fringe groups they pretend they're not political parties, but I suspect they are associated with political parties, or they're just fringe groups pushing horrible barrows and hate-filled barrows. You can actually, they pay for ads. You can actually stop seeing those particular ads as well.
Okay.
So you can, Facebook is, to be successful as an author, you really do need to be on Facebook. And you need to learn how to be on Facebook safely. You don't want to be there, like I say, filtering out all of these the negativity. My feed now is, I probably once a week I kill off somebody in my followers. But I've got nearly 7,000 followers on Facebook feed, my Facebook feed. So to get one a week, that's all right.
That's all. I can cope with that.
That's nothing, but the other thing is that to start to build your following on Facebook and build your following on LinkedIn, but make sure that they're the right followers, because it's easy to turn around and get 1,000,001 followers.
Oh, no.
You can pay for followers, but if they're the wrong people, why bother? What's the point? They're never going to buy your books. They're never going to promote you. They're never going to refer your book to anybody. They're just noise. So you're much better off having a smaller group of real people.
Oh, God, totally agree.
And 1,000,001 irrelevant people. Yeah, just works a lot better. And makes life simple. You don't need all of these social media platforms. Like I know Dan's technically challenged, shall we say, Dan? It's sort of.
He's not the only one.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I suppose that's my advantage, is that I've been involved in tech since computers were created.
Yes. Yeah.
I've been involved in it all the way along, so it's a second nature for me. So I quite often forget how hard it is for people who are new to it. But yeah, but once you start playing with it, it's not
Could be fun.
It's fun. I
Could
think
be fun.
it's fun. Have fun with it. Don't be scared of it. Use, I've talked about ChatGPT and Gemini. Use those tools to create posts and things like that. By the way, I've got some more content coming through into the membership site, which will be about how to create content using social media, using artificial intelligence.
Wow, good.
These AI tools. It's just how you ask it, how you prompt it.
That's the skill, isn't it? That's the skill for that, is the prompts that you give.
Yes, yeah. And it's actually, it's a skill, but like any skill, the first time you do it, you're rubbish, on any skill that we've ever had in our lives. The first time we ever attempt something, it's rubbish. Then, the second time it's a bit better, and the third time better again, and before long, it's easy. But if you don't do the first rubbish one, you'll never get to the 100th good one.
Yeah.
So you've got to try it. You're not going to break anything.
Yeah, it's true.
The world's not going to blow up in front of you when you do it. You're not going to have a nasty neighbour complaining about it, Dan. So there's those tech tools, but you don't need to get complicated with it.
So you're saying that two of them, like I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, but not very much. That's enough of social media. You don't have to go any further.
To start with.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, ideally with social media, you go to where your target audience hangs out. Okay. Now, for all of you on this call here, your target audience doesn't hang out on TikTok.
No.
For example.
Yeah.
If you, like you, Marilyn, if you were turning around and were targeting the kids that need to improve their reading, you would use TikTok. Okay. Now, if you're doing crafts and recipes, etc., I'd be honing in on Pinterest.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. If you're doing, if you're doing a lot of visual stuff, Instagram. Okay. Now, but I think for here it's start with LinkedIn and Facebook. I think as an author, having a LinkedIn profile is important because it sets you up as a professional. Okay. Even if you don't do much on it. Okay. Like for example, Lynn, your target audience, it'd be more receptive on Facebook than LinkedIn. Okay. Whereas Dan, it's architects and builders. They're going to be more receptive on LinkedIn than they will be on Facebook. And Marilyn, you've got, your homeschoolers are more receptive on Facebook.
Yes.
But the executives are more receptive on LinkedIn. Right. Yours, Marilyn, because of the age of parents, so they're typically going to be young adults themselves, the 30-ish age group. Okay. They may very well be hanging out more on Instagram. Okay. But Instagram is an offshoot. It's owned by Meta.
Yeah.
Okay. So get your Facebook moving first.
Okay.
And then come over to Instagram at that point in time in the future. You could be 6 months away, 12 months away. Don't worry, don't stress about it just yet. Okay. But there is a way when you get the professional profile, you can actually do a post on LinkedIn, on Facebook profile, and copy it over to Instagram as well. But
that's what I've got to do.
yeah, you don't get a lot of engagement from Instagram.
Okay.
Either.
No.
You know, that's the place where influencers hang out.
Oh.
Okay, you know, that's where Beck Judd hangs out, for example. You know, they're, you know, selling stuff, promoting other people's things. You know, so yeah, so it's a very different world on Instagram, and unless you're prepared to act like an influencer, you're probably better off sticking to Facebook. You know, Facebook also, that when for you, Marilyn, you've got the homeschools, but you've got parent groups there, not just homeschoolers. But you've also got you know, I know in Victoria there's Independent Schools Association, or Association of Independent Schools. That's got quite a big following. I'm assuming they're affiliated with other state-based, you know, private school parents. The other thing you'll find, private school parents are probably more receptive.
Yes.
As well. You know, they're paying big bucks to put their kids through school. They want to get a return on their investment. They're probably a little bit more in tune. You also have, you know, then you have grandparents, because a lot of grandparents get actively involved in the raising of their grandchildren nowadays.
They do. They do.
So, you know, so there are other little avenues, sort of micro niches, but you'll see those in Facebook.
It's just dawned on me, apart from focusing on the wrong group, that the bottom line issue is there. I'm frightened to get out there.
Yes.
Well, I've just got to stop that.
Well, think of you know, one of the ways to get over that fear. It's a fear, and we all have those. It's not to be ashamed of. I mean, it's just it's just life. Yeah, yeah. We have a subconscious that, you know, over the years gets battered through life, you know, just general living. You know, there's lots of things come along and batter our self-conscious. And so we do have these fears, you know. That fear could be technology, it could be fear in posting, it could be a fear in what have you. And that's just, it's real. And it's just something that I find that, you know, the more you practice, the less fearful it is. And the other thing I think, what works for me, and I don't know if it works for others, but for me, it's thinking of what your higher purpose is. You know, if your higher purpose is, you know, improving lives, example, which every time I talk to people about their higher purpose, it tends to always come back to improving lives, you know, whether it's their own life, the lives of family and friends, and then lives of their community and the broader population. You know, and you go, well, you've got to overcome the fear to get into your higher purpose in life.
Gosh.
And then break through, you know. So, but once you start, like I say, do the first one, get over that.
Absolutely.
Once you start to do that breakthrough, it's like your kid with reading and Stephen King. You know, he had a fear of reading.
Yeah.
He probably had a fear of being made to look stupid.
He did. Yeah.
You know, and being bullied. You know, kids who couldn't read in my days at school were bullied. Then they turned into bullies.
Then they turn into bullies.
Yep. As a way of, you know, hiding. Yeah. So, you know, absolutely. When you look at it and think back about it, you know, fear is probably one of the drivers.
Universal.
It's one of those things. And, you know, like I say, when we're born with the ability to take on fear, it's probably one of our survival skills, you know, from prehistoric times. You know, it's eat or be eaten. So you know, fear is a primal
Yeah.
primal behaviour, and it's a hormonal response as well that triggers
Yeah.
fight and fright.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another one too, of course, I think fear of success.
Oh, that's a big one.
You know, I would say that is higher than my fear. Fear of success is higher than my fear of getting out there.
Okay. So let's explore fear of success. I see Lynn's nodding.
Yeah, I saw you straight away, Lynn.
Yeah, Dan, you.
Thank you.
I understand it as well. You know,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, no, I don't understand. I don't. You know, how do we overcome fear of success?
You've got to become successful.
Yeah, it's sort of, you know, what's it look like?
What does it look
You
like?
are successful. You know,
Mm.
so one way of thinking about it is break it down. Okay, you know, is success selling 100,000 copies of your book?
No. Okay.
Is it selling 1 million copies of your book? Okay. Maybe lower the barrier, you know, just think about, okay, I'm not, you know, I don't want to, I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to sell 1 million copies of my book. I'm just going to focus in on selling 1,000. You know, that's not successful. It's not fearful. It's not as fearful as 1 million. And that's why we have in the Facebook group, I call it the 1,000 plus club. You know, so, you know, focus in on the first 1,000 copies of the book. That's not big. It's not scary.
This is wonderful.
Yeah. So it's sort of, it's like eating the elephant one mouthful at a time, you know. Eating the elephant in one go that's scary.
I mean, it's all just nonsense, really. You know, sitting back here thinking I mean, it's not conscious, but I'm not going to do this because I might be successful or something silly, but it's just do one step at a time.
Yeah. It's illogical.
Yeah.
The fear is illogical when you think about it, but when you think about it also, we've been ingrained into us as well, throughout our whole lives.
Yeah.
That you know, successful people are these demigods and what have you. Oh, I couldn't be that. You know, people come out and say, you know, oh, Elon Musk is the most successful person in the world, and I go, oh, couldn't be like him. I want to be like him. You know, that's scary, and it's all wrong.
Yeah.
But we get fed all of these messages. So one of the things a lot of people don't realise is that every single day, we as individuals get bombarded with over 20,000 messages.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you don't see them, you don't hear them, you don't notice them, but we're bombarded with them. You know, it's, you know, it's everything from, we walk down the supermarket aisle, you know, there's 100 different products on there. You're going to walk across past 100 different marketing messages, just walking down an aisle. You know, on TV, you'll see product placements in movies and things like that. They're all little marketing messages, all little cues. You know, the way an actor behaves, that's a marketing message. You know, and that all comes into our subconscious, and our subconscious is, you know, absorbs things. Our conscious level filters it out, but our subconscious, we get bombarded with all of this all the time, and it's every one of us do that. And you know, this is one of the things marketers have to deal with.
Yeah.
Is how can you get past that message filter? Okay. So one way that they do it is barraging of ads. Okay, so we'll see with election time, we're getting barrages of ads and marketing messages from all these from all of these politicians and different parties and what have you. Outside of that, it's things like Coca-Cola. How many times you've seen a Coca-Cola ad over your life? You're just getting bombarded with it. Okay. And so
Absolutely.
one of the marketing tools marketers use is this constant barrage. So when for marketing terms is, if you're looking at a broad audience, you have to barrage more. If you're looking at a targeted audience, like in your case, Marilyn, the homeschoolers, they want bragging rights. The executives want their children to be successful in their careers. If you're talking to them on that level, you get through that filter.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, Lynn, historians, people who are interested in history, or in your case, it could be, in Lynn's case, it's, the grey nomads who want to exercise their brain by learning more about Australia. And that's a big thing with, aging, is that, there's a huge cohort of us who want to continue learning and experiencing because we're exercising this brain muscle. And so, Lynn, you've got those people, Dan, you've got similar sort of people, architects, that are dealing with, drongo neighbours, these they complain about because they can,
I love it.
That's we've and this is why targeting and target audiences is so important, because you've got to break through and get heard amongst these 20,000 messages that are coming into people are exposed to every day. But you've also got to think about it from your own perspective. You are who you are because of these 20,000 messages you've received every day over the course of your life. Your fears, your anxieties, and all of that come from those as well.
Absolutely.
So technically, when you think about it dispassionately, a lot of those fears are irrational, but they are real to you. So embrace them. My philosophy is to embrace them, and to actually go out there and, I suppose, meet them head on.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Which is give you a little bit of insight into me, personal stuff. Yeah. I was as a child extremely shy. I was the most shyest person I've ever known, and anybody's ever known. Thinking back, there's no way I could do any of this. And I decided that I had to break out of that. And I grew up in a country town, Mudgee, in New South Wales. And I thought the only way I'm going to get out of this is to be the first person in my family to get a degree, go to university. But living in a country town with, I had 4 siblings. We didn't have enough money, to afford for me to go to Sydney to live, but I decided I'm going to do it. So I finished my HSC at 12 o'clock and I was on the 1 o'clock train out of Mudgee. My bags were packed in the hall outside of the exam room. And it's the only way I could do it. I had to face that fear.
Wow.
And then, and I got to Mudgee, I got to Sydney, and then I worked it out from there. And very quickly I realised that, you can face down these fears.
Yeah. Yes.
But you've got to have that. You've got to do the first bit, take that first step. And for me, that was my first step. There was a lot of other steps after that. It didn't disappear overnight, I tell you. you know, speaking from stage, holding webinars, doing these sorts of things. You know, it's just, they're all steps I had to do to get through, to make it happen, you know.
Yeah.
So we're all capable of doing it. I know that. It's not just me, we're all capable of doing that.
I'm going to do it.
Yep. You've got it. You've got this, guys. You've got this, Marilyn. You got it, Dan.
I got it. I got it.
Over the side of things, you know, you can, you know, get somebody to over your shoulder to show you how to do stuff.
Yeah. Just stop it. I'm just going to stop it.
Yeah.
And get on with it. Yep.
Just think you're not going to hurt anybody. You're not going to blow anything up.
No.
You know, you're not going to destroy your book, all the hard effort that you put in to get to where you are.
I'm just going to do it.
Yep. And for Marilyn, with what you're doing, I think also the next step for you is then to turn it into an online course that you actually monetize.
I really want to do that, Ian. I really want to do that.
Yeah. Now, for Dan and Lynn, you probably, I don't know if you've heard of Udemy. You haven't heard of it? No. Udemy is an online platform where you can put courses up on, and you know, they've got thousands and thousands of courses on there, but people go there and most of them are free, and people don't consume the training on it. It's a bit of a useless thing. As creators, you do not get access to who buys or you know, who could give, you know, takes on the course. You don't know who they are, so it had zero value to authors. So yeah, I don't recommend it for that reason. There's a truism in marketing: people only value what they pay for.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, give something away, they don't value it. So Marilyn, that's my recommendation: is get some of these foundation things going, get some of that going, and that's a different topic, which is moving on to online training.
Oh, I'm, you know, as I said, I've been hit by a Mack truck, but I went underneath and I haven't been destroyed. It's just, I'm just going to stop it and get on with it.
Yeah. And speaking of online training, while I'm mentioning it here now, I like it. I think just about every author has the opportunity to create an online course. Okay. For example, Dan, you know, you've had a lot of experience as an architect over the years. You've learnt a lot. You've got a lot of, not just, you know, the way I look at it is that we, as individuals, we're at school and we're gaining knowledge. Okay. After school and after university, we go out there in the real world and we gain experience. Then from that experience and that knowledge, we create wisdom. And the wisdom is where the real value is for people. And that's what really, really helps other people, is that wisdom and tapping into that. So for example, Dan, your experience as you know, just on dealing with people who have, you know, these numpty neighbours, you know, how to deal with those. You know, if you're fresh out of uni and you're starting, you know, you're an architect, becoming an architect, and you're having to deal with this, that can be quite scary. How do you deal with this? You know, there's a training course just in that. You know, a little mini training, how to, you know, how to turn around and become, you know, deal with these, you know, minimize the risk, how to turn around and, you know, they're going to happen. You know, don't take it to heart. This is how you deal with it. Boom. That'll, you know, I think that's a lot of value in that. And Lynn, you know, you've created a history book.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could do a couple of things. You can bring that history alive, you know, by basically performing the book, you know, talking about it, visualizing it visually. Another one you could do is you could actually teach people how to create a similar book. You know, you've learnt how to do that. And there's a lot of other people out there, you know, who have got life experiences that are very valuable, you know, to it. So, you know, I encourage you to start thinking broader than your book. You know, the book is just a stepping stone into these bigger things. You know, just like this course here, you know, unlock your book's potential. It started as a book.
Yeah, got it.
You know, so it's, you know, it's now a course, and it's now starting to build into community. Now, just to give you everybody an update too on that, we've in the next couple of weeks, I'll be turning this into opening it up from just the foundation members to the wider you know, community out there, author community. Okay, so we'll start to see some changes and some differences in it, but you know, things will still keep going on and on as okay. Now, part of this foundation things was to do this Q&A for each of the authors, and we've done that. Okay, so this is the last one for this author Q&A where we've done it a one-on-one. Now I'm going to drop that back to once a month. Okay, now up until now we've been doing it one-on-one with an author, but I'm going to run a Q&A where you can ask any question. It's going to be open to everybody. Okay, so it's a learning experience, but it's also an opportunity to throw stuff out there. Okay, so if you've got a question, you know, bring it along. By all means, bring it along. If you've got a suggestion on extra content that you would like in the membership area, share it, bring it along. The content area, by the way, I've decided now that it's going to be evolving and growing. Okay, so there's going to be more content keep being added to it, and I'm going to be looking at trying to add an extra section to it every month. Okay, so things like you know, at the moment I'm doing some work on Facebook in there. You know, creating a professional profile. I'm going to do another section on how to get followers on Facebook. Okay, I'm going to do a section on Goodreads, and what to do and how to set up Goodreads to use that, to leverage that, to get your name and your book profile out there. So yes, I'll be doing things like that, and I'll do one on LinkedIn as well. I'll be doing that. I'll then eventually be doing ones on doing some advertising on, you know, paid advertising on things like Facebook and LinkedIn. I'll be just doing those two. But yeah, so watch this space. There's more and more coming as well.
Exciting.
Okay. And also in the background, just so you're aware, I've started to pull together my next program, which is all about, it's called Signature System Formula, and it's all about how you create online learning programs, how you create the content on it. And for those who are technically challenged, Dan, I'm looking at you, it's creating a platform using the same Expertly platform that this is on, the Unlock is on, with all of the tech behind it. So you'll still need all of your marketing bits, the Facebook and LinkedIn and what have you, but hosting all of that, creating landing pages, doing the marketing, the automated process, and doing all of that setup and everything, it'll all be done for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're working on it, but that's probably 3 to 4 months away. Okay, so now is the time to start making sure you get traction on your book.
Absolutely.
You know, so then you can start, and also to start thinking about, what could I do from a training program? You know, if that's something you want to do, you know, it's not something you have to do. I'm just saying if it's something that you want to explore, you know, so we'll have that happening as well. But yeah, definitely for you, Marilyn, that's the number one thing for you. I think that's
it is absolutely.
That's how you get your story across, really. But then I think it's an extra value add.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fired up.
Yeah, and with Rod too, it's going to be for him the same thing. You know, like, you know, how to live a, you know, because his is all about eating and longevity and expanding your lifespan, your health span, as well as lifespan. So what you put into your body. So he's, you know, that needs to be done in a program like that as well. Oops, Dan, she's back. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for today. I think we've done
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
So thumbs up, everyone, and we'll see you. I'll actually do it at the. I'm not sure exactly when. It won't be at right at the beginning or the end of the month. It'll probably be about the 2nd or 3rd week. So probably about the 3rd week of May. We'll do the first.
So this is the last of the weeklies.
Last of the weeklies, yes. Yeah.
It's fine. Yep. Thank you.
And then we'll move into the monthlies.